This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. You notice how most men spend their lives trying to wrestle the world into giving them comfort, when the truth is comfort was never the mission. Warren Buffett, a boy out of Omaha, didn't stumble into wealth by luck, by chance, or by flashy miracles. He learned early that the world bows to patience and discipline. Imagine a rancher with a single calf. A fool might sell it, eat it, or waste it. Kooldanheim, Ekoldampet, blue. He learned early that the world bows to patience and discipline. Imagine a rancher with a single calf. A fool might sell it, eat it, or waste it, cause in his hands it looks small, hardly worth the trouble. But a wise man, he raises it, feeds it, protects it, lets it grow, lets it multiply. In time that one calf becomes a herd so large the ground shakes beneath their hooves. That, son, is compound, that the Warren Buffett yoked himself to, not for a season, not for a year, but for a lifetime. Most men can't stomach that kind of waiting. They throw logs onto their fire once, burning bright and proud, only to watch it die down to ashes by morning. Buffett started with a spark, a little ember, a few nickels selling Coca-Cola bottles and gum door to door. He didn't see pennies, he saw seeds. He knew the math of patience would outwork the illusion of speed. While the world rushed to gamble fortunes on schemes and quick wins, he sharpened his axe on the stone of time. The boy who bought his first stock at 11 didn't just learn about markets that day, he learned the punishment of impatience. He sold too early, lost the greater harvest, and let the regret sear discipline into his bones. That scar became his teacher. He would never again let urgency steal from his future. You see, compound is like the rain on a tin roof. Drop by drop, slow and steady, it don't look like much at first. But let it fall long enough, and soon barrels overflow, rivers swell, valleys flood. It invisible power. It doesn't roar at the start, it whispers. But in the end, it drowns every excuse a man could make about why he never built something lasting. Buffett listened to that whisper. He lived frugal, not because he couldn't buy mansions or yachts, but because he knew every wasted dollar was a soldier he failed to send into battle. Every dollar put to work was another brick in his fortress, another seed in his orchard, another calf in his herd. And the herd grew. Decade after decade, it grew so large that he himself admitted he couldn't spend in it. Imagine a monster of wealth so massive it outlives its creator, a blaze so strong you could walk away, and it would keep burning brighter. That the compound monster. But listen close. Don't only apply to money, it applies to your habits, your words, your choices. One drink too many every night compounds into a broken liver. One book a week compounds into wisdom men can't buy with the gold in Nevada. One act of cowardice compounds into a life of missed chains. One act of courage compounds into a legacy carved on stone. The law don't care who you are. It serves the patient and punishes the reckless. And what most men fail to see is that compound always works. The only question is whether it builds your fortune or your ruin. It's as you proceed for the Harlem Holiday Spofford. All right. Buffett chose fortune not because he had to, but because he respected the patience of the harvest. He said once the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Well, life itself is built the same way. The world will always rob the restless to reward the steadfast. And in that dusty Nebraska boy, steadfastness had found its champion. He watched men richer than him fall to greed, arrogance, and speed. He saw them treat wealth like a firework, brilliant, loud, over in a flash. He chose to be the quiet fire that never goes out. And when you walk past his story, don't just see the numbers, the billions, the empire of Berkshire Hathaway. See the law. See the monster. See the fire built one ember at a time, fed day after day, year after year, until the blaze grew so high the world had no choice but to stand in its light. He never lived his life like a man desperate to prove his wealth, because in his bones he knew that money is not meant for noise but for endurance. Think of Warren Buffett old Cadillac, his modest house he lived in since the 1950s, the way he eats McDonald's breakfasts as any common worker starting his day. Those details are not quirks, they are a philosophy written in flesh. Every dollar he didn't waste on vanity was another soldier pressed into the army of compound. He understood that wealth has no duty to shine on the surface when its true power is underground, like roots digging deeper, feeding a tree. until it towers over the land. Men who chased yachts and castles, they saw their fortunes shrink beige. Their monster was starving. Buffett monster, it was feasting day and night, grow so large it would become unstoppable. Coca-Cola, American Express, sea candies, these were not gambles. They were seeds planted in fertile ground and then left alone to grow. He refused to interrupt the compound process with impatience because he understood a sacred truth. Once the harvest begins, your only job is to guard it. Look at his partnership years, those days when others mocked his stylely boring. They wanted excitement, volatility, quick wins to brag about at dinner tables. Buffett didn't care. He sat in rooms reading annual reports, studying balance sheets like they were maps to buried treasure. He'd wait years to make a move, and when he struck with conviction, not hesitation. That patience created empires. Patience built Berkshire Hathaway into a citadel against time itself.
So you need to burn into your mind.
He never rushed because he wasn't playing the same game everyone else. He wasn't racing against a clock. He was marching with eternity. His horizon wasn't 5 years or even 10. It was forever.
That's why he laughed when people worried about short-term drops, about the noise of markets crashing and soaring. He knew storms pass, but the oak tree planted decades ago only grows stronger with each season. Imagine a man sitting quietly by a river, dropping a single stone in every day. No one notices at first. It looks meaningless, a waste of time. But come back in 50 years and you'll see he built a dam, a monument of persistence that outlasts the skeptics. That is what Buffett did. Dropped stones daily faithfully, and the river of compound rose higher and higher until it reshaped the land and him. And yet, it is what most people miss. He didn't build this monster so he alone could feast. He promised to give it away. He vowed long before his fortune reached its peak that the wealth would flow to others, to causes larger than himself. That is not greed. That is stewardship. He understood that what you hold in your hand is never truly yours. It is entrusted to you by time, and time expects you to multiply it. That vow is why Buffett's story will help beyond his life, because compound is not just arithmetic, it is legacy. Each decision compounds not just in your wallet, but in the hearts of generations that come after you. The monster he raised was never about mansions, never about cars, never about trophies. It was about showing the world that patience, discipline, and faith in the long game can create wealth so vast you cannot spend it even if you tried. And Dean is where the cowboy truth stares you in the eyes. You too are raising a monster, whether you know it or not. Every choice you make today, every dollar, every habit, every word, they are seeds in the soil of your future. You can feed the monster of regret, of wasted years, of empty promises, or you can feed the monster of compound, of wealth, of legacy. The law doesn't change. It only asks, which one will you serve? When you walk into tomorrow, remember Warren Buffett lesson carved not in stone, but in decades of proof. Time is either your executioner or your ally, and only the patient man gets to call it friend. Charlie Munger once said, "The big money is not in the buying or the selling, but in the waiting." And that line was not poetry. It was the creed Warren Buffett carved into every decision he had made. Together, those two men became more than investors. They became prophets of patience in a world drunk on speed. They sat in plain offices, ate simple meals, lived in quiet neighborhoods while the world outside chased every flicker of light like moths at midnight. And in the moths burned themselves out, Buffett and Munger grew richer, stronger, more unshaken. Their friendship itself was a form of compound in two eyes, sharpening each other year after year, multiplying wisdom the way money multiplies under the law of patience. They refused to be swayed by noise, by critics, by fear. They laughed when others panicked, and they were silent when others boasted. They knew the harvest was not for the impatient, and they were willing to wait decades to prove it. Coca-Cola is the perfect example. Buffett bought into it not because it was flashy, but because it was simple, dependable, and eternal. He loved businesses that sold products people would want a century from now, and he saw Coca-Cola not at a stock, but at a river that would never dry. While others sold too early, he held. While others doubted, he doubled down, and the dividends kept rolling in year after year, pouring into the coffers of Berkshire Hathaway until the investment became legendary. That is the monster of compound at full height. towering over men who thought they were clever with their quick trades. Sea Candies was another jewel, a small candy shop that became a billion-dollar lesson in the power of brand and loyalty. Buffett and Munger didn't see candy, they saw a cash machine that would compound quietly while the world ate its chocolates. And it did. Over and over they showed the world that wealth is not built on frenzy but on foresight. They proved that boring businesses, if chosen with care, become dynasties. Yet through it, Buffett never forgot the weight of stewardship. He lived humbly, but he knew money's true value is not in what you consume, but in what you preserve and multiply for those who come after. He pledged to give away the vast majority of his fortune, but he believed wealth should outlive the man, not bury him in gold. And so the monster he raised will not end with him. It will feed millions, build schools, cure diseases, create opportunities for children who will never know his name. That is the kind of compound most men cannot even fathom. Most men measure their success by the cars in their driveway, but Buffett measures his by the lives his wealth will touch long after he is gone. And now, I turn the mirror to you. What are you, compound? What monster are you raising? Every habit, every choice, every act of discipline or indulgence, they are seeds. Feed them daily, and one day they stand before you too large to deny. Will it be a monster of regret, of wasted years, of missed chance, or will it be a monster of wealth, wisdom, and legacy so vast you could not spend it if you tried? The law of compound will not stop, not for you, not for me, not for anyone. It either build you or wreck you, depending on what you choose to give it. Warren Buffett chose to give it patience, discipline, and faith. The question that remains is, what will you give it? Envy is the tax that impatient men pay, and Warren Buffett refused to pay it. He used to say, "It's not greed that drives the world, but envy," and he watched fast envy hollowed men out that termites eating through the beams of a house. In the markets, he saw traders ruin themselves, not because they lacked opportunity, but because they couldn't stomach watching another man win while they waited their turn. Envy whispers lies, that you're falling behind, that someone else's season of harvest means your seeds are worthless, that quick wins are safer than long game. Buffett knew better. It understood that compound doesn't care what the neighbor is doing or rewards those who stay planted. He trained himself to be content with boredom, because boredom is where compound lives. While others panicked in storms, selling at the bottom, chasing at the top, Buffett stayed rational. Rational now was his shield, patience was his sword. He'd walk into chaos with a calm step, buying when blood was on the streets, holding when others trembled, because he knew fear and greed are the twin assassins of wealth. Most men lose, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack temperament. They let their emotions run their investments, their choices, their very lives. Buffett, on the other hand, mastered the art of keeping his head when the world was losing theirs. And this is not just a lesson for markets, it's a lesson for life. How many times have men abandoned their mission because they envied another man's path? How many have burned their harvest chasing someone else's applause? Compound is simple, but it demands humility. It demands you admit that slow growth, steady and unseen, will always outlast fireworks. Simplicity, not sophistication, builds dynasties. Buffett rejected complex strategies, exotic instruments, and flashy trades. He looked for what a child could understand, a product people will still love in 50 years, a business run by honest managers, a margin of safety wide enough to ride through storms. Simplicity is not weakness. It is clarity. It is choosing the straight trail through the mountains while others are lost in labyrinths of shortcuts. And yet most men reject simplicity. It is unglamorous. They crave the appearance of genius, the applause of cleverness, and in the end, they compound failure. Buffett compounded success by cutting away the noise. Built his empire brick by boring brick, deal by careful deal, year after faithful year, until the citadel was too strong for any storm. And then the deeper truth, he never thought of himself as extraordinary. He often said anyone with discipline and the right temperament but thought his path. The tragedy is that most refuse. They chase quick thrills, they bow to envy, they overcomplicate what was always meant to be simple. Plant, water, wait, harvest. That is the rhythm of compounding, the heartbeat of wealth, the same law that grows forests from seeds and rivers from raindrops. If you listen close, you can hear that law calling you too. It whispers through every wasted hour, every dollar squandered, every envy-fueled distraction. You could have built something eternal. Buffett did. The question is whether you. Time, that silent currency, is the one thing Warren Buffett has always guarded like a man protects his ranch from thieves in the night. He often said, I can buy anything I want, but I can't buy time, and that truth became the compass that steered every one of his decisions. See, money is replaceable. Possessions are replaceable. Even opportunities come and go like seasons, but time once spent is gone forever. Buffett treats his hours like gold coins in a chest, refusing to let anyone steal them with meaningless meetings, shallow distractions, or false urgencies. His calendar is nearly empty because he fills his life only with what compounds: reading, thinking, choosing carefully, and waiting patiently. And that is why his fortune compounded into something greater than numbers. It bought him freedom. Freedom not to be rushed, freedom not to be commanded by other men's schedules, freedom to spend his days exactly he pleases. Imagine the power of waking up knowing the day belongs to you, not your boss, not your creditors, not your fears. That is what true wealth is, not the glitter of luxury, but the quiet control of your own time. Most men, sadly, sell their time cheaply. They fill it with gossip, with entertainment, with tasks that do not matter, all while claiming they want freedom but chaining themselves with wasted hours. Buffett understood early that time is the soil in which compound grows. Every wasted hour is a seed never planted. Every misused day is a harvest lost forever. That's why he reads more than almost any man alive. Hours upon hours of reading, thinking, reflecting, because he knows ideas compound just like dollars. When what becomes knowledge, knowledge becomes wisdom, wisdom becomes judgment, and judgment becomes fortunes. That is the hidden compound most ignored. The compound of thought. He doesn't rush to act because he knows thinking is action, the kind of action that multiplies silently until one decision, made with wisdom, is worth more than 1,000 rash moves. And then lies the cowboy lesson you must not forget. You either be master of your time or slave to someone else's urgency. The world will always tempt you with noise, with the illusion that busyness is progress. But Buffett teaches us that true progress is measured not in how many steps you take, but in whether each step is in the right direction. 1,000 wasted steps leave you lost. One wise step compounds into destiny. So guard your time, guard it a treasure, because it is treasure. Build habits that compound, build knowledge that compounds, build wealth that compounds, and most of all, build freedom that compounds until you wake up one day and realize, like Buffett, that you hold the most valuable prize of respect. Hebrews said, to live life on your own terms. Character, Warren Buffett will tell you, is the kind of wealth that compounds far beyond the reach of dollars, and reputation is the currency you cannot buy back once it's spent foolishly. He has often warned, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. That truth is not just advice for Wall Street, it is a law of life itself. Every choice you make compounds into the story people tell about you. Every word spoken compounds into trust or suspicion. And that's the interest on a fortune. Reputation grows slowly, invisibly, until one day it carries a weight you cannot escape. Buffett treated his reputation like a rancher treats water in the desert with sacred caution. He refused to stain it for quick profit, but he knew trust multiplies faster than money. Business partners flocked to him, not because he waved contracts in their faces, but because his word was iron. And in the financial wilderness, that kind of integrity is rarer than gold. When people dealt with Buffett, they knew they could sleep at night because his handshake was worth more than legal jargon. That trust itself became a compounding asset. Men gave him opportunities others never saw, deals others never earned, because they trusted his character. And that is a lesson every man must get into his bones. Your character compounds in silence every day, whether you tend to it or not. Betray it once, and the monster you've been feeding turns on you. Guard it faithfully, and it grows into a fortress of trust that shields you through every storm. Buffett never claimed to be flawless, but he understood that reputation once damaged is a wound that bleeds forever. That's why he insisted that every business Berkshire acquired must be run by managers with both competence and integrity, because he knew compound without integrity is nothing but rot dressed in silt. It may shine for a while, but in the end it collapses. Now let's stretch this truth wider than money. Think of your relationships, your marriage, your friendships, your family. Every moment of honesty compounds into trust. Every betrayal compounds into doubt. Every act of courage compounds into legacy. Every act of cowardice compounds into regret. This is why compound is not but a law of finance, but of existence. Buffett's fortune, staggering needs it is, will one day be scattered to charities, to foundations, to causes that outlive him. But his reputation, that at longer, his name is synonymous with patience, honesty, discipline, and wisdom. That is the compound monster of character, a beast far more powerful than dollars. It Ben is where I turn the lantern toward you. What do you compound in secret? Are your daily habits build a fortress of trust, or are they hollowing your foundations? Are you multiplying courage or feeding cowardice? Are you stacking truth or gambling with deception? Just as every dollar compounds, so does every decision. And when the final tally is made, the world will not only measure your wealth, but your character. Warren Buffett showed us that the richest man in the room is not the one with the loudest toys, but the one with the cleanest reputation. Guard it, grow it, let it compound until your very name becomes wealth that no thief can steal and no fire can burn away. Simplicity has always been Warren Buffett's sharpest weapon, sharper than cleverness, more enduring than genius. Thus genius often blinds itself with pride while simplicity keeps its eyes on the road ahead. He has said many times that investing is not a game where the smartest guy wins, but the man who avoids stupidity outlasts the rest. That principle, though it sounds plain, is the very marrow of compound. It is not the grand leaps forward that make you rich in money or life, but the quiet discipline of avoiding backward falls. Think of a man crossing a canyon on a narrow bridge. He doesn't need to sprint or show off. He only needs to avoid missteps. Buffett has spent his life avoiding missteps, and in that quiet refusal, he gained more ground than men who ran recklessly into brilliance and fell into ruin. His philosophy is built not on trying to predict every twist of the market, but on understanding his own limits. He refuses to touch what he does not understand. He avoids debt like a rattlesnake in tall grass. He stays away from ventures that smell of complexity, because complexity is a mask that often hides rot. And then the lesson, it is often what you refuse to do that defines your success. Buffett's power lies not only in what he bought, but in what he never touched. The world tempted him with high-tech startups, with speculative frenzies, with fads that caught fire and burned out just as quickly. He stayed with Coca-Cola, with railroads, with insurance, simple businesses that even a child could explain. Because he chose simplicity, compounding was free to do its work without interruption. The law of wealth doesn't require genius, it requires humility. It requires the courage to say no to 99 distractions so you can say yes to the one opportunity that matters. Buffett's desk is a fortress of no. He lets thousands of ideas pass him by without a second thought, because he knows the cost of distraction is compound destroyed. And this too is not that about investing. Your life will be defined more by what you refuse than by what you chase. Every temptation resisted, every foolish road avoided, every distraction rejected compounds into strength, into clarity, into destiny. Most men lose because they cannot say no. They spread themselves thin, they chase every glittering lure, and in doing so they interrupt the compound of their own mission. Buffett guarded his compound like a rancher guards his cattle, and the herd multiplied beyond imagination. Simplicity was his fence, his shield, his weapon. And I ask you now, have you built the courage to be simple? Or do you still hunger for complexity because you think it makes you look clever? The world does not reward cleverness. It rewards persistence, clarity, discipline, and the humility to do what works over and over again. Buffett is proof. He did not need to be the smartest man in the room. He only needed to be the one who said no, often enough to protect his compound. That is the way of the compound monster. It does not grow by brilliance. It grows by consistency. It does not roar in the beginning. It whispers. The men who listen to that whisper, who walk simply and avoid foolishness, are the ones who one day wake up to find the monster so large it cannot be slain, so powerful it cannot be ignored. Welcome, dreamer. Tonight, as the gentle rain taps on your window and the fire crackles softly nearby, let yourself drift into a world of possibility. Imagine waking up tomorrow with clarity, purpose, and the steps to build wealth that lasts. Gradually, I define the mystery fact and point. Why doesn't second order that money is only a tool, a servant, never a master? He pledged long before his fortune grew to its unimaginable size that nearly all of it would be given away, not parceled out in vanity, not carved into monuments of his own name, but spread across causes that would outlive him by centuries. That is the purest form of compound, when the fruits of patience and discipline are poured into the soil of humanity itself. Imagine a tree that has grown tall from decades of quiet watering. Buffett could have built a fence around it, hoarded the shade, and sat under its branches alone. But instead he chose to scatter its seeds far and wide, so that forests might grow in places he would never set foot.
That is legacy. That is compound beyond the brave. For most men, wealth dies with them, buried in stone, divided among heirs who may or may not honor it. For Buffett, wealth is meant to be recycled into the great river of human progress. He saw his billions not as trophies, but as instruments, entrusted to him for a season, and now destined to serve those in need. The irony is that in giving it away, his name compounds more than any monument could. He will be remembered not only as one of the richest men, but as one of the greatest stewards of riches. And yet, is a deeper truth. He did not wait until the end to live this principle. Buffett lived generously in wisdom long before he pledged his fortune. Gave freely of his advice, his insights, his letters to shareholders that taught millions of ordinary people the laws of patience and compounding. Those words alone have multiplied wealth for countless men and women across the world. His generosity was never yet financial, it was intellectual, spiritual, and moral. And herein lies the cowboy lesson etched in fire: wealth that ends with you is wasted. Wealth that multiplies through others is eternal. Every act of service compounds. Every seed of generosity compounds. Every hand extended to lift another compounds. Buffett billions may fund schools, hospitals, research, and relief long after his body returns to dust. But your small acts, your small sacrifices, if planted faithfully, will yield just the same. Do not mistake size for significance. A cup of water in the desert compounds into a spring. A word of encouragement in a storm compounds into courage that saves generations. The highest form of compound is not what you keep, but what you give. Warren Buffett understood that his monster of wealth, left untimed, would die with it. But if unleashed through giving, it could live forever. And now the lantern turns again toward you. What do you build that outlive you? Are you feeding a monster that will die in your hands, or one that will serve the world when you are gone? Compound is patient, it is quiet. But in its final form, it demands you think not only of yourself, but of the world your children and their children will inherit. Build wisely, build generously. Build for more than your own comfort. For the man who feeds the compound monster with service leaves behind not only wealth, but a story sung long after his name fades. Buffett has always spoken of what he calls the circle of competence, and though the phrase sounds simple, it carries the weight of a lifetime of wisdom. He understood that the greatest danger to compound is not what you know, but what you pretend to know. A man who strays beyond his circle, chasing opportunities he cannot measure or understand, is like a cowboy wandering into quicksand. One wrong step and he is swallowed whole. Buffett stayed within his circle, not because he was afraid, but because he was disciplined. He studied businesses until he could explain them in a sentence. If he couldn't, he walked away. He turned down hundreds of deals that others rushed toward, and in doing so, he protected the fortress of compound he had built brick by brick. The world often mocked him for this. They said he was too slow, too cautious, too stubborn. They begged him to invest in technology when it was booming. They criticized him for missing trends that seemed unstoppable. But Buffett knew trends are waves, and waves crash. Compound is not built on waves. It is built on tides, the slow, steady rise that no storm can reverse. By staying in his circle of competence, he turned what looked like limitation into unmatched strength. And then lies the paradox. Humility is the highest form of wisdom. To admit what you do not know is to guard your compounding. To confess your limits is to build your walls higher against folly. Most men are ruined not by ignorance, but by arrogance. They believe they can master everything, and in spreading themselves too wide, they spread themselves too thin. Their compounded monster starves because they fed it with hubris instead of discipline. Buffett, on the other hand, wore humility, led armor. Laughed at the idea of being a genius, insisting that success was mostly temperament, patience, and a refusal to be swayed by the crowd. He read voraciously,
not to appear clever, but to sharpen his judgment. He sat in silence, not to look mysterious, but if thought itself compounds if you give it space. And that humility created a power greater than wealth. It created resilience. He could endure mockery, storms, booms, and busts, because he never pretended to be what he was not. And the compound law rewarded him for it, decade after decade, until his fortune grew so massive it defied comprehension. But more important than the dollars was the lesson his life taught, that greatness is not built on the illusion of knowing everything, but on the discipline of mastering something and staying true to it. And so the challenge comes to you, sitting by this fire listening to the rain. What is your circle of competence? Do you even know it? Or are you wandering in quicksand hoping luck will save you? Have you built walls of humility around your mission? Or are you letting arrogance bleed your compound dry? The world will tempt you with waves, with noise, with opportunities that glitter but cannot endure. If you do not know your circle, you will be swept away. But if you stay within it, if you master it, if you water it faithfully, then your compound monster will rise, unshaken, undeniable, unstoppable. In the end, that is it the world remembers, not the man who chased everything, but the man who built something that lasted. When storms rolled in, when the markets bled red and men ran like cattle spooked by thunder, Warren Buffett didn't flinch. He sharpened his gaze and looked for openings others were too blind to see. He understood something most men never will. Crisis is compound's greatest ally because it hands the patient man opportunities at a discount. Fear is the currency of fools, but it is also the banquet of the disciplined. Buffett's greatest moves were not made in calm waters, but in raging storms. During the crash of 2008, when banks were falling like dominoes and the world thought the system would crumble, Buffett rode into the chaos like a steady-handed cowboy. While others cried for rescue, he was negotiating deals that gave him ironclad returns for decades to come. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, he poured money where others were fleeing, because he trusted the one truth that never fails: panic always sells cheap. He did not buy recklessly, he bought courageously. That difference is the marrow of his empire. Courage without discipline is foolishness. Discipline without courage is stagnation, but together they are the fire that forges compound wealth in times of darkness and during the hidden wisdom. Crises are not exceptions, they are inevitabilities. They come for every market, every nation, every life. The question is not whether the storm will come, but whether you be ready when it does. Buffett thrived in storms because he prepared in the sunshine. He kept cash reserves. He stayed within his circle of competence. He waited with patience while others wasted themselves in noise. Then, when the thunder cracked and the herd scattered, he was the only rider still in the saddle, ready to claim what fear had abandoned. This is why he said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." That line is not a trick. It is a way of seeing the world. It is an invitation to live opposite of the crowd, to find calm in panic and patience in frenzy. But you must understand, this mindset is not built overnight. It is forged through years of discipline, through taming your emotions, through letting compound do its work until you trust it more than you trust the noise of men. Imagine your old life a ranch battered by storms. If you built it on shallow soil, it'd wash away. If you built it with patience, stone by stone, storm after storm, it stand taller with every trial. Compound thrives in chaos, because chaos resets the board, humbles the arrogant, and rewards the steadfast. Buffett's story proves this. He never prayed for calm skies. He welcomed storms because he knew they were harvest time for the prepared. So I ask you, what do you do when storms come? Do you scatter with the herd, or do you hold steady, waiting for the ground to open opportunities only the brave can see? Crisis will come, in your money, in your work, in your soul. The compound law is the same: patience, courage, discipline. If you master them, storms will not rake you. They will build you. They will feed your compound monster until it grows too large for any wind to top. And one day, I've offered you to look back at the wreckage others ran from and see in it the foundation of your greatest gains. Consistency is the quiet drumbeat behind Warren Buffett's entire life, the steady rhythm that carried him farther than brilliance, luck, or speed it would. He never claimed to be a prophet, never sought to dazzle with flair. He simply kept showing up year after year, decade after decade, feeding the compound monster with patience and principle. Most men are fireworks, loud, bright, short-lived. Buffett chose to be a lighthouse, silent, steady, enduring. He did not rewrite his rules every time the wind shifted. He did not chase every glittering trend that promised fortune overnight. He clung to the same bedrock. Invest in what you understand. Demand a margin of safety. Let time do its work. Over and over, those truths guided him like north stars across 60 years of markets that rose and fell like the tides, and because he refused to stray, the law of compound rewarded him with a force that seemed almost supernatural. Yet there was nothing mystical about it, only the sheer power of consistency applied long enough to become unstoppable. Consider how many voices shouted at him through the decades. Buy this, sell that. The old ways are dead. The new world demands new tricks. Ignored them all, not out of arrogance, but out of discipline. He knew that every change of course, every abandonment of principle, would fracture the compound he had so carefully built. And herein lies the secret that few can endure. Greatness is not in doing extraordinary things once, but in doing ordinary things faithfully, relentlessly, for a lifetime. That is the pasture where a compound grazes. That is the trail where fortunes grow. Buffett kept his lifestyle consistent too, never indulging in extravagance to impress the world. Lived in the same house, drove modest cars, ate simple meals. Why? Because consistency compounds there too. Every unnecessary luxury denied became another soldier, sent into battle for the future. Every simple habit repeated became another brick in the wall of discipline. And over time, that wall became a fortress nothing could breach. Look at most men and we see inconsistency bleeding them dry. They save 1 year and squander the next. They pursue wisdom today and chase distraction tomorrow. They declare principles, but abandon them the moment storms arrive. Their compound monsters starve because they keep changing its diet. Buffett fed his monster the same steady meal: patience, discipline, humility, integrity. And because of that, grew and grew until it filled the horizon. Now ask yourself, what is your rhythm? Do you keep it steady, or do you let the noise of the world knock you off beat? Do you live your principles daily or only when convenient? Do you show up for your mission every season or only when skies are clear? The world does not reward occasional greatness. It rewards relentless consistency. That is why Warren Buffett's story is not a tale of one lucky lake, but of a lifetime of unbroken steps in the same direction. If you want your compound monster to rise, you must do the same. Choose your principles wisely, then never abandon them. Walk your trail daily and let time turn your footsteps into legacy. For in the end, the man who endures is the man compound crowns.